States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I was wondering if we could just flop 7.1 and 7.2 around, just because it seems like pickleball is here and they might want to. So. I add a 7.3 ladder truck acquisition update. We want to.
The mastication, we can just give a little date on it.
We add that on 7.4.
7.4.
Great, when someone just move down moment with the agenda.
So
Second. Moved by Dave, second by Kyle, looking for the discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, next we move on to public forum, the opportunity for citizens to present items to the council that are not immediate. Each presentation is limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 15 minutes set aside. If your item needs follow-up, city staff will arrange. Step forward to public forum, please make your way.
My name is Terry Neisel, I live at 720 Second Avenue Southwest, Pine City. I'm here today to file a complaint with Dan, with the mayor. Back in April 24th, 25, I put in a request for some information. I still haven't received the information as of today. I got here this morning, Martha handed me a letter that is not telling me everything that I wanted. And that my information request form here. Now, I don't know what seems to be the problem. I want you to answer, Mayor, not Marcy. She comes up with excuses.
What information are you looking for, Terry, that we didn't provide for you?
Okay, city attorney's name, address, and phone number. That's one thing. Not in this letter that she gave me, that's dated back in May. And, that one is the dates that you all went to city attorney and the sheriff's office about this issue I have with this housing thing. You know, it states in there, it's a cover up. You know, I mean, a lot, it's a civil issue. Of course, everything's a civil issue with the city and the county. And the letter she gave me is dated May 19th. That's got today. And these forms they had to fill out. I'll give them information. My phone number's on here. How come she didn't call? Told me that this letter was sitting there waiting for me. Can you explain that to me?
When it was mailed out, I was making.
No, it was not with mail. I see this today. I got here. I took out work today for this deal. I lost $250 today. I'm all upset. I should not have to lose money because somebody in the city here can't do their job. Understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, Terry. I need to review this. I haven't been in contact or looked at this at all, so we'll look at this and I'll get back to you with more information. So I know what's needed.
Yes, you got my phone number, it's on there. I want you to call me now. I'm not Murphy on this deal. She doesn't, if she doesn't want to call me, because we're talking, that's fine. Yeah. And that's all I have to say.
Terry, will.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, this is still public forum. If there are any other members of the public that would like to step forward for public forum, please get to the podium. I will ask again, it is still public forum. If any members of the public would like to step forward and take the podium. And I will ask for a third and final time if anybody would like to step forward. So before we close the door, since it is an open public meeting, we gotta leave it open. But I appreciate it. All right. Hearing none for public forum, we'll move on to presentations. 5.1, Safe Routes to School.
Hi, thanks for inviting me back. I'm Penny Simonson, and I'm the transportation planner with the East Central Regional Development Commission. Our office is in Mora, and we cover 5 counties with Chisago, Isani, Kennewick, Mille Lacs, and Pine. And so, a while back, Pine City Schools and Pine City had asked me to, wanted to put together a safe school plan that is state funded. And there was an application made between the county and the city and the school district. And funds were, a small amount of money was awarded to the ECRDC, to transportation planning, community development planning in regard to safe routes to school. Safe routes to school, just to kind of remind everybody or refresh folks, it's a way of making, helping the communities plan so that the community is a safer place to walk and bike, or if you're in a wheelchair or something, to be able to roll to school or to the businesses in town, get to church, do your life in a safer way. It also looks at things like infrastructure that might help reduce the clogging of the streets because of vehicles. So there is a vehicle aspect. It's not just, for walking and biking. And a couple months ago when I came and just kind of brought, the process to everybody, we've had multiple meetings of the, the folks from the city and the county and the school district, and then also community members that participate in it. And I just wanted to kind of report out where we're at with the plan. There have been identified a variety of infrastructure recommendations that the group would like to have put into the plan. And these do not bind the county or the city, the school district, anybody into doing these projects. It's just through surveying and walk audits and conversations with, the 3 entities, the areas that, and I'll hand these out, are some of the places in Pine City that the folks would like to see put on a list, so that if there's funding available, that the public will is there, all the stars kind of align, that that could be considered. I'm visiting with Marcy. There's another project that you're looking at, and that could be added to this list too. Because what the Safe Routes to School plan does is it gives, and to put whatever projects you want to put on the list, it codifies it in a way that so when you go to ask for funding, either through MnDOT or the federal government for the infrastructure improvements, you can identify that this project is on a list. It's been discussed. There's been open conversation about it. That is something that most funding sources will ask you, is this project on the list? So I've got my name and address and phone number on this. I am not married to the list. This is the list that you guys collectively, when I say you guys, that's probably a little too casual to say, with the Safe Routes to School group has identified these. And I'll read through them just real quick. And I did not bring a map. I apologize for that. There are they're broke into several groups. Crosswalks and sidewalks seem to be the two categories that folks had an interest in. There can be other things. Some of the things in the crosswalks to the side, other things beyond that could be lighting, parking, a variety of other things. But so far, the crosswalks at First Ave Northwest and Main Street by the VFW and Fairgrounds, the crosswalk at Fifth Avenue Northwest and Main at American Legion, crosswalk at Fifth Avenue Southwest at Cabina, near Cabina Coffee, crosswalk at Sixth Ave Southwest, the elementary school, and a flashing signal, was a recommendation. Crosswalk at Third Ave Southwest, at Mia's, crosswalk at 8th Street and Hillside Ave, southeast, potentially consider bump outs, there. Sidewalks at 8th Ave and 2nd Street at the railroad, sidewalks at 8th Street Southwest and Hillside to the elementary school, sidewalks at 7th Street Southwest near at the elementary school, sidewalks at 2nd Ave and 5th Street near Robinson Park downtown, sidewalks at 3rd Ave and 5th Street near the library and Robinson Park downtown, and sidewalks in general areas to include any new developments and Pine Tech student housing. Now, I haven't lived under a rock. I know that sidewalks can be controversial. There's folks that like them and folks that don't like them for very strong reasons. The same way with bump outs, but these are things that had been discussed and based on feedback from surveys and such, it made the list. It doesn't have to stay on the list, and that's why this is a draft. It's just a thing to bring this conversation from the Safe Routes to School group to the community, so. And I don't know, how you want me to segue into this, because this is something that you guys want to talk about and ask me to.
This is
Yeah.
identified actually as one that's called out, the sidewalks at 8th Avenue and 2nd Street at the
Yep.
railroad. That's where this is.
Yep.
And it's also part of the Pine Tech. So,
Okay,
and this project is actually to a point where city staff has made contact with both the railroads and MnDOT. Those have been a teams meeting. There's actually going to be an on-site meeting in July between county, city, BNSF, St. Croix, and MnDOT.
okay.
So I guess my question is, is there a proper way to identify these projects to work at them in an order? If there's some that are farther along in planning than others necessarily.
Yeah,
Like crosswalks for me are just paint and guys doing it, because I feel as a municipality, it's our job to provide those crosswalks, and there are some in those places. I think they just need to be tuned up.
yeah.
But this is something that's been in the planning process for a number of years.
Yeah, and my guess is each one of these is at a different level of, some of them have been just talked about, some of them, it might be the first time we've looked at, thought about it, but yes, I think, particularly, to put it into the plan in a priority area, I think, it would be nice to take this list, add to it what you want to add to it. And pull out what you don't want to have there. And then also to put it in a priority. If this is the farthest along and this is the one that you want to put, at the top of the list. I think any way you want that presented, the plan can look the way you want it to look.
I'm only one of 5, but I'm just, just
Yeah.
asking on this specifically.
So I am curious, just looking at the map, like up by the Legion, there's a crosswalk across the road. There's not one across Fifth. Is that what you're asking? To have a crosswalk? Because down by the bank, the coffee, there is a four-way crosswalk.
Yeah, yeah.
So
You know, there are multiple things, in the conversation, about each one of these spaces, spots, and, each one had, there were multiple things that were talked about, and maybe it is just paint. But, they were identifying things about each spot that, kind of, tipped up everybody's attention and, wanted more, exploration done. And not that it's fine the way it is, and maybe it doesn't stay on the list, but
I just meant, are you looking for like flashing crosswalks at each of those locations? Just you paint at those locations or?
see, and the group hasn't, gotten to that point. I'm just, making any recommendations about specific improvements. So, this is a, first brush of the situations from a safe house to school standpoint. And realizing that if there are things that the city's already done, I'm hoping that the list doesn't complicate what you're trying to work on.
I think also we're curious about what funding can be available through the Safe Routes to School as Pine Tech's involved with this particular project. It's a county road, but it would be joint county city looking at putting in that crosswalk, which
Yeah.
is done by the railroad.
Okay, so the railroad would do it?
Yes.
They're the ones who have to do the work.
Okay. And, have you visited with MinDOT about what funding? So, okay, so, I'm sorry.
No, I don't
Get
think.
Marcy. Okay. And when you said MinDOT was involved with meetings, was that District 1?
We
It was-
did not have MinDOT involved in our meeting. It was with the railroads.
No, MinDOT is on.
Were they on there?
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah, okay, because usually, it's been my experience, if you're not asking for, relinquishment of the right of way to, from the railroad, then it always seems like MinDOT will push it back to the railroad to pay for it. That's been did you get that vibe?
Well, they made it very clear that we would be responsible for the
Oh,
$225,000 of what typically was.
MinDOT did, yeah.
The railroad,
The railroad.
because of where it lies, the way the railroad stated to us is that they are the ones that will do any and all work and we get invoiced.
Okay. And so there won't be any, so the railroad will hang on to the right of way.
Correct.
And that does cause, challenges for you to be able to get MinDOT money. And if the railroad doesn't have, if they've ceded the right of way to you, then that opens the gate, to apply for, state and federal monies from MinDOT. That's the way I've always understood that. And that's a challenge, like with the transportation alternative funds, which is federal funds, that each of the districts has. So you would apply to, District 1 in the fall, usually for transportation alternative funds. And, one of the first questions they ask is, have you secured the right of way? And if you haven't, they'll tell you to go back and secure the right of way and then make application.
Does
So,
the railroad ever actually give up the right of way or do they just lease the right of way to you for X amount of years?
You know, I think it's the second one most of the time. I mean, very seldom. I mean, it's a sticking point. Now, MnDOT may, if you are able to get the letter, that might open the door to funding from the railroad. I mean, I can visit with that too about it.
Are they 50 feet with the railroad? Is it 25? 25 feet.
5 feet.
Okay.
It's not an uncommon problem.
I think this project's moving in the right direction. I don't see problems with it for finding funding, even if it's not at the MnDOT level, at least in my mind. It's one of those things that probably really needs to be done.
Yeah.
It's the other projects that you have on here. It'd be nice to get a better idea of what you're looking for, because like I said, some of those crosswalks already exist. Are you looking for new paint? Are you looking for flashers? As far as the crosswalks go, I would think that that would be something that Public Works could talk about and maybe with the county engineers if it's crossing 61. The sidewalk stuff, I think, is gonna get into planning and also Public Works. Because not everybody's gonna wanna have sidewalks, and there could be some very large trees that people don't wanna lose. And I think if we're gonna look at that seriously, we agenda, start looking at it sooner than later, and then I don't think it'll work, but this Public Works maybe. That conversation too.
And just I wanted to reiterate that it's the Pine City Safe Routes to School plan. So it's what do you want, let's say, the crosswalk to look like at the fairgrounds? I mean, that, and if everyone's satisfied at the city level, and you know, or any of the, you know, communication, I mean, if it becomes a thing where you don't want that on the list, then it doesn't have to stay on the list. But, yeah, we can work to narrow those things down so that the list is more in depth.
The
That's
sidewalks,
something.
the sidewalks part two, we can cross-reference with the comprehensive plan to make sure that some of these projects aren't already called out. in the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, so the thing is, yeah, that's a good, very good point too.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Thank you for the.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, just, you know, anytime I can be of help, because particularly with some of these things, more than likely, not all of them have the railroad involved. And it's gonna be a cleaner thing, but it's nice to see that that's moved along. Thanks.
Thank you, Penny.
Thank you. All right, next we then move on. Number 6 on the agenda. We'll start off with HRA. I was not in attendance. Gina was in June, so I have an update for HRA at this point in time. So move on to EDA. Yesterday we met for EDA. That was pretty quick. Meeting was not a lot on the agenda. Had some discussion about the revolving loan funds. Everybody seems to be making their payments on time. We're looking good financially. I'm missing 15.
Just need to get the investment policy over to the EDA. That'll, that's pretty, that's asked for.
Next, we'll move on to the planning commission. So last night, we discussed. We discussed, we went through and our CUPs for the past 5-ish years. Not given anything that needed to be called out or any sort of enforcement that needed to be reached out to the property owners with.
Got rid of some that are no longer and needed businesses that are there necessarily.
Buildings, we passed, building and grading ordinance. And some ordinance amendments, for architectural requirements for buildings that. Starting an ordinance committee planning what's necessary, assuming on a website council here in July. That's about all I do. You have anything else for them?
That would say CUPs for the room of the evening.
Do we have a list of those CUPs that would be nice to get a copy just to look over? I'll forward to. Should.
All right, let's move on to number seven, old business. We'll start off with 7.2 West Side Park pickleball courts up.
Like to speak or and update council on where you're at or with your fundraising, kind of how successful that's been. Want to speak to fundraising?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of fundraising. We had a big sale, the weekend of the citywide sale. And what we did was we asked all of our people on our email list and other people to donate items of higher quality, higher dollar amount. And we ended up renting one of the buildings at the fairgrounds. And so we had a sale, we had big yellow fingers out there, if anyone remembers seeing them. And our pickleball staff and everyone helped with the whole thing. And we ended up raising $12,000.
Wow.
We had a big sign there that said all items are donations, all sales are donations, and all donations go to future things in Pine City. So that was one successful event. We did have an anonymous donation for $5,000 that came in. We've had other donations come in from different places too. The other thing, we just had a golf tournament last weekend, and that did really well, and we raised $7,500 there. So we still have bingo coming up at the fair, and then we help the Lions Club's food booth or whatever at the fair. So we're hoping that's going to bring in another jump. So we're excited.
And that's fantastic.
So we have a lot of people have been coming forward and helping us. We're amazed at the amount of support we're getting and the generosity from everyone around us. So we've been very excited about that.
We also just got a grant from Partners in Healthy Living. That's through the county, or not, yeah, to public health. And what we will be doing with that is we'll be networking with currently we play at Mashawquod Rock Creek and Community Ed, and then we're reaching out to Pine Tech. And it's, we're going to promote an app that kind of lets people know where their playing opportunities are. The grant will also provide paddles and balls and we get put into a day where they play pickleball. So PCAT people will come in alongside and help. So we got $1,500 for that grant. So
Where we're kind of at now too is just the soil sampling, and we're just looking at the best route to take for looking to see that the ground is actually viable for that.
and then our current status is permission to test the site. We would like to see the city council dedicate the site.
Dedicated right now, or
I don't know what your process is. I'm just making the request.
my guess is that we have to figure out if we can put it there first for the soil sample.
So if everything were to go well with soil sampling, and we were to invest that, which would probably entail that and some topography and civil engineering, we just want to make sure we're not putting a bunch of money in here and then we get a no.
When we do an MOU,
We would, yes, and we just right now need to make sure the soil is.
Right.
Like Kyle said, compatible.
I think the MOU or the agreement would have to have something as long as it's there. We would use it for pickleball, but it wouldn't be dedicated to pickleball forever. Because if for whatever reason you decide not to maintain it or there was a new sport in 100 years, we want to be able to do something different with it. So if you look at language looked at so that if you stop doing pickleball at some point in the future, you can do something different with the site rather than just have a bunch of concrete that's green. So
Yeah, and we put that clause in most of our MOUs now that say we can go back and review it. We need to review it.
once you start putting in pretty hard infrastructure, my guess is it's going to stay that way for a long time. So
Well, thank you for that. That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, we've been good.
All right, next we move on to item number 7.1, the 315 Main Street purchase agreement update.
All right, Leslie's here also for, that we use this here. And the purchase agreement is with the developer and going over with their attorney. She doesn't have concerns about where it's sitting and but expecting corrections or amendments to the line. So, that's where we're at with that.
So like the last meeting, I have major concerns because the purchase agreement should have came to the council first. And it went out to the developer. We're waiting for changes from the developer to come back for an agreement with us. There's also stuff in here regarding a clawback clause that I don't like, and I'm not sure how that language ended up in there because our agreement was to sell this property to them. There's a lot of time dates that have to be. Who decided to come up with these additions to this purchase agreement that the developer had to meet these dates and have a clawback in there?
So,
No, I was just.
so that purchase agreement was originally drafted by Flaherty, the city's attorney, for a property transaction that had happened a few years ago. And so Marcy and I sat down and went through it and adjusted it to meet this transaction's intent. It's pretty typical for a unit of government when they are conveying a piece of property to have a clawback to make sure that the agreement you have with the developer happens. So you would put this property out for RFP, you would ask for proposals and ideas of what it could be redeveloped into. And you had a couple for multi-family housing and you had one for a hotel project. And so the clawback is just to kind of hold them accountable to that idea. And I had reached out also to a couple of other cities to see what their purchase agreements look like as well. And they all have that clawback in there. And that is also to prevent nothing from happening and then the property sitting vacant, deteriorating, and landing on the tax forfeit rolls, which then becomes pretty problematic for the city. And then the property's in worse condition because tax forfeiture takes a lot longer than the time frame in the purchase agreement.
There's not much flexibility in this purchase agreement. And the trouble is that the clawback clause is pretty straightforward and the timelines are pretty solid. And what's scary about it is that this proposal for this project has a lot to do with grant funding, state funding. Working with government agencies, it's very difficult to have all those things line up on the same deadlines. I don't know why the dates were put in there. You mentioned that this was copied from a different agreement. So if this came from Flaherty and Hood, did Flaherty and Hood review this before it was sent out to the developer?
No, they did not.
So had they seen this document?
No, they,
When did they see this document?
maybe 2 weeks ago.
So Flaherty and Hood is on this agreement that says that they wrote it. And if they saw it after it was sent out to the developer, that means that we're misrepresenting.
Actually, I need to correct myself. They have not seen this purchase agreement.
So their name is on it. They haven't seen it. And now they could come back and sue us. You laugh because you think this is funny. This is not the way that this purchase agreement.
I don't find any of this funny, Councilor Palmer, at all. The agreement was the purchase agreement, the resolution, everything in that document was drafted by Flaherty and Hood. It's a boilerplate purchase agreement for a land transaction that involves land being conveyed for less than pretty standard. It goes to the developer for them to adjust the dates. So those dates aren't in concrete. They're not pretty harsh. They're not shrunken to make it hard on the developer.
they were created with conversations with him to see, okay, how long is it gonna take you to develop your plans? When do you think you're gonna start construction? When do you think you're gonna be finished? All of those dates were created based on his proposal and conversations with him. Once he has his attorney review it, then we redline it and send it to the city's attorney for final review. We're not misrepresenting anything here.
We're changing the agreements. We're asking the developer to change the agreement. There should have been a warranty claim. And it should have just gone out. We should have sold it. There's all this extra language in there that doesn't need to be in there. It says that it's got 30 put on it. The attorney's never seen it. You call it a basic plate. I don't know why their name is on it. If they haven't seen it. They provided this to us with permission that we can use this going forward forever.
You paid for it, so yes, it's your document. We do that with variances, conditional use permits.
We paid for it under the bill side, correct?
I don't know if we paid for it.
Did we pay for it for $350? I mean, does anybody else see the liability in putting somebody's name on it that hasn't reviewed the document until it went out to somebody else?
I don't.
I understand why you would say. This has to go away. We need to have it done professionally by somebody who knows what they're doing. And I don't think that the CDD knows what they're doing on this presentation.
I feel like all the reviews that eyes have been on it, I feel comfortable going forward with it, and guess it'll be up to the rest of the council to decide if they want to scrap all the hard work that's been done. It's been going on for years.
Scrap the hard work. We're selling it to them. You guys voted to sell it to them back in April. It should have been said it all signed off back in April,
How many?
3 months.
Thank you.
And the developer saw it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a month ago.
He's had it since it was approved at the council meeting, at that April council meeting. He
said this purchase agreement.
had the purchase agreement.
And we haven't got any feedback since.
It was my understanding that his lawyer is reviewing it and working forward and making any modifications that need to be made.
This should be all said and done and moved on forward. We're kicking the can down the road. Somebody is torpedoing this project. I don't know who it is.
I'm confused with that. We're not getting anything down the road. It's not the city that is holding on to and modifying this document at this point in time. It's the developer that we agreed to sell the property to that is his legal representation is going through the document right now. So if we wanted to sign the document tomorrow, we don't have a document to sign at this point in time because they're still working.
Why is there anything that has to be changed in the agreement? We chose to sign it over to them, sell it off to them. That's what they agreed to.
We still have, I feel like this is just, if we just signed a piece of paper and sold it to them, it's ending it, would be landing us in the same place forever. Park, where 20 years down the road, things not necessarily done correctly. So I don't see any harm in making sure that everything on both sides is completed properly and correctly and following state standards.
There's no flexibility in this agreement. It's gonna come back to us. And I think that was the intent with this agreement.
But the agreement was written with Mr. Cruz's timeline based upon his presentation, based upon his numbers.
And you think everything's gonna be exact to his presentation?
I think if it states in the purchase agreement that something's not going to be a timeline, he can come back before us and we can address the timeline as needed, but I don't think it's I didn't read it as a hard and fast, this must be done by this date or it's going back to the city. Because I like you, I don't want the building.
That's the
I agree
problem.
with you.
But it
I think we can
It is
review
in
it.
the agreement that it does come back to us if it isn't done by a certain date.
We have the option to take.
But he's done.
But you're asking for permission from the council. If there's a problem with the process, then it has to come back to the council.
Well, I don't think if he doesn't like it when he sees it, that part of his lawyer advises him either to sign it or not sign it. I think that question will be answered at that time. If the agreement that it's obvious he didn't like it.
And to trust
I have no trust.
and go forward with this because this is the decision we make together. And we're just in the process of it. And if we don't have trust, we don't have anything. And I think we're treading on thin ice here infighting about a contract that's not even ready for yet.
Then it should have gone to the developer. I mean, the developer could have sent us a list of the things that they want in the contract. The council didn't see it until after it was sent out to the developer. The attorney hasn't seen it. There's a lot of things that don't make sense in this. I mean, this is the process every time we sell a property, is that we send it to the developer, that we have them write the contract, send it back to us. We misrepresent our attorney. The council signs off on whatever they give to us. That's our procedure. You talk about Thomas Park, but apparently that's the problem that we've been doing since Thomas Park. We let everybody else write the agreement and then we sign up on it. That doesn't make any sense, does it?
I do think Thomas Park is a different story than this government building that we passed between the county and the city for years. I think it's a different story. I don't. And the city, we shouldn't be in the business of selling property often. We have done so a couple times in the last couple of years, but I don't think the city.
The city agreed to sign it back in April to sell it. Everything was said and done. Should have been signed that night. It's 3 months later. Now we have a developer telling us the contract they want to come back.
Well, actually, council accepted a proposal that night. So then from there, when you buy something, I know when you buy a house, you make a list of, well, I'd like this done, this done, this done. Then the seller says, no, I'm not gonna do this, but I'll do this. It's a negotiating thing. It's never done. Instances, there's back and forth going.
They either want to buy it or they don't. It should have been signed off and paid for that night. All said and done.
You gotta earn this money. I don't know. Every transaction I've made in my life, as long as I got some cash, I'm happy.
So I got proof from
Council, when you sell public property, you do have to follow a process. It requires a public hearing so that the public knows you're disposing of publicly owned property. It's part of the transparency, it's part of being fiduciary's financial responsibility. Additionally, if you are selling a piece of property for less than market value, you also need to do the test of whether this is a subsidy. That also requires some public input, should they want to. All of that's contained in the resolution that we've drafted because you have to follow the process of, we are selling a public piece of property, so the public needs to know what you are selling it for and what the intended use is, and is it a benefit to the community? So you can't just sell it the same night that you select who's gonna buy it. You have to. And that's exactly what this purchase agreement does with the enacting resolution that's been drafted to go with it. It's a full package. It all has to happen. It makes, it's more of an efficiency where you have your staff draft it. You send it to the purchasing party. They give you their red lines. You then send that to your attorney and then it comes to council for final review and acceptance of it. So that's when it would have came to you, is when the public hearing is scheduled, once the document's been reviewed by your attorney. So we are here prematurely, having this discussion, which I appreciate hearing some feedback. The clawback clause is pretty standard. I don't think, it doesn't require that the city take it back if he fails in his development. It leaves enough wiggle room that the council can decide, say, no, we want you to try again. Or here's some other conditions that you would add to it. So there is some wiggle room in there.
So we need to put it out for RFP and have a public hearing saying that you're gonna put it out for sale.
We formed, I'm trying to remember. We formed the work group. We made the decision to put it out for RFP. See, did we hold a public hearing at that? So at this point in time, we're still just in the preparation phases, and we've decided we want to dispose of this property. This was based on our feedback, this is where we are. We brought in the 2 or the 3 at that point in time, developers who said, this is my plan, this is my plan, this is my plan. It shows the developer that based on the work group and council, we decided to go with. And at this point in time, we've drafted a purchase agreement. They're working on the purchase agreement, we'll work on the purchase agreement, it will go before our attorney. Then it will come to council for us to make our set in stone decision.
How does the attorney feel about having their name on this proposal?
He mentioned that he would have liked to have seen it before it went to the purchaser. But that was the only. But he is gonna see it, so, once we get it back.
This whole thing feels botched. And it feels like there's a group of people in here that are trying to botch it because they want this back. And no, Gina, I don't trust it. The timelines in here, the clawback clause, it all says that the city wants it to come back. That's what they're waiting for.
The construction timeline is pretty standard on any.
Drive it through tax abate.
And I often think attorneys always want to take a look at something once or twice or 3 or 4 or 5 times.
The attorney should have looked at it before it was sent out to their attorney.
Did the purchaser give an idea of when we should see it? Okay. All right, well, thank you for the update.
Do we have any further discussion on this?
I would like to, in the future, review our process on selling properties and the agreements that we're gonna set up. Seems that we have a number of properties over the years that are causing us problems. I think we need to define that process a little bit better and how that's done.
Next, we will move on to item number 7.3, letter from acquisition estate.
Kind of off the cuff here this morning, but just as you know, we've been searching and searching, and you guys asked me to look for prices of new. But before I get into that, I just wanted to let you know that I did get a call earlier this week from a salesman. And it's the same scenario is still going on this. And he said that he possibly has found us a truck. They're not sure where it'll finalize that, shipping and everything. But it's a what would it be, 24-year-old truck for north of $300,000. So the price of the trucks, because of the market being overtaxed, is just still going through the roof, and with the raw supplies and everything still going up, and not the unknown with the trucks, right? As far as the prices. So I was able to get a HGAC lease agreement price through Fire Safety USA on an E1. And I do have some paperwork I could hand out. They do have their lease options and everything. But basically, in rereading the emails this morning, it's 1.95 million if we were to sign a purchase agreement before this final 2025 price increase goes in place. At that is going to happen toward the end of October, and at that point it'll go to 2.03 million. However, Ryan did say that if we were able to do anything through the HGAC contracting at this point, he would do a second year bumper to bumper warranty free. And I do have, it's a lot of money, it's a big commitment, obviously, as I know what it's going to be, but I got information if you'd like me to hand it out for everyone.
I feel like
The digest.
I feel like we could hand it out, but I feel like putting this in a memo form would be helpful. Because I took little scribble notes, but
Oh, I can do
that
that.
would be nice, along with that.
I'm also waiting for other dealers to give me their options that they have available, because I was gonna do like a comparison thing.
But even just sharing it and so that we have it, we can retain it, that would be great.
Sure. this has, the Rev, I don't know, it's funny, obviously, this is their payment, arrangements, their fees, their interest rates, they do that kind of thing. This is not or understand all the parts that are going on the trip. But, and then
Thank you.
there's everything, you can see that there is a slightly different, price, obviously, payment price between the 15 and the 20 years, but Rev Group owns E1, they own PME, fire trucks, they own, I don't know, a lot of companies, but Rev Group also offers a weird thing that I would, if we are gonna look at going down the road of purchasing a new truck, I really would encourage the city to, we would obviously have to meet with Nicole on this, but the more money that we could, so the delivery is 36 to 40 months right now if you order a brand new truck, which is a lot faster to get it through them than it is to get through anyone else with their current. Everybody else is running close to 60 months right now, but Rev Group has a unique opportunity that whatever money we could put down today on that, or, you know, at the signing of the contract or along the way up until that truck is delivered, they will pay us 5% interest on that money. Which is kind of weird, but I have an email from Brian. So basically, current date, if we were to put $500,000 down, would save us $87,500. So the encouragement would be to put a down payment in, and then the payments per se that we would be paying, if it could be worked out with finance or whatever, would be to keep making those along the way, so you gain that interest that later in the terms of the lease, the bank will adjust the payments, obviously, but then it'll adjust it even more because they're gonna pay you interest on it. I haven't had a chance to sit down with Nicole and go through all this stuff with her, but, I just wanted to give you, an update and kind of shooting off the cuff here because I only have it from one dealer. I do know that, from the prices that I've gotten over the phone with other, entities, is E1 has not had as high of a price increase because their raw metals, are covered under a 5-year contract, which is coming to an end here, and I think they said a year, but they will still lock it in on that price. And apparently they built another warehouse to start storing. Sounds dumb, but it's probably not.
So you mentioned 500,000, we have 250,000 set aside for it. My guess is that we would have to budget 250,000 for it in 2026 out of taxes. I don't think we have a large supply of money sitting around that, so I'm probably looking at other projects this year, correct?
Correct.
Just really hoping to get an extra pot of money somewhere. You said 30 to 40 months, that's 3.5 years. Where are we sitting at for the next audit of our ISO rating? What was
Well,
that?
at the same time period.
So if we didn't have a ladder at that point, what would our ISO rating do in town?
It'll depend on the examiner. If we have one under contract, if we have a truck under contract, the examiner can take that and actually give us the points for that truck. If we don't have one under contract, then obviously you don't get it. But he can take it in. If he were to take that, not take that in, we could also request a re-audit of our ISO as soon as it were to be delivered. We were literally the last time for our in-city rating, the last time our ISO was done, we were 0.33 points short on the end of the whole thing from going to an ISO 3, which was kind of unheard of for a state on-call volunteer department. And our out of town went down to a 5 for up to 5 miles. Which is what some cities have for their city rate. But
Is our current in-town rating a 3?
no, it is, we're a 4 in,
We're 4 in town now.
so
Okay.
up to 5 miles.
Which is still what the state marshal's office says is amazing for our town.
Correct.
So it's not poop in those 4, that's good.
If it did go into a 5, would that have a pretty significant impact on commercial insurances in town?
There's a much larger difference in the insurance rating between a 4 and 5 than there is between a 4 and a 3. So yes, it would have a significant, potentially have a significant negative impact.
And we've been on the hunt. This is year 3 now. Am I right? For a used truck? It started in the 150 to 225,000 range, if I remember correctly.
165.
165.
Yep.
We're 3 years down the road. We have 250,000, and now those trucks are between 400,000 and 600,000 if you can find them.
Yes.
And the forecast is they're not going to become any more readily available in the next 3 years.
No, and that's what's coming from multiple used apparatus dealers. They're literally saying that right now with the current market exploding in the backlog is there's people out there that have had ladder trucks for like 5-6 years and are selling them for what they bought them for. And they're just taking even money and selling them for what they paid for it and ordering a new one because it's going up. They can order a new one for pennies compared to what it cost their outright. It's amazing how much this has went up. Like Brian down at Fire Safety, we were talking and he said, you know, if we were to sign a purchase agreement on this truck, they'll sell that truck to us today. He said, add 4.5% minimum to that truck compounded out by the time it's delivered. And that's what the MSRP of that truck will be from today itself.
5% a year.
So I know that a ladder isn't the only truck in the fleet that needs to be replaced. There's other trucks that are coming up on the horizon, unfortunately, which are probably looking at $1 million a piece.
And that's what they're going.
If we had a new ladder, would there be any possibility of downsizing the fleet that we wouldn't have so many $1 million trucks that had to be replaced?
I've already been looking at that and I do think we have the ability to probably end up downsizing the fleet. I'm not done going through the the ISO documents for points. But I think if the purchase was done and done well orchestrated with the pump side, ladder, and then yes, that would have to coincide with the next truck. I honestly think you could probably take 2 of the large trucks out of the fleet and replace it with 1 medium-sized truck. That would be much less expensive. Then it also coincides, just to be totally honest, it honestly coincides with we need these trucks to be able to do more and have more capabilities because we're getting less and less people involved here. It's just like every other very industry.
So you'd probably use your ladder truck as your backup pumper.
I'm honestly thinking that'd be first out in town.
Well, it could. In most cities, that's what they do. That's the only way they can justify it. And so, yeah, no, it
The
makes
reason
sense.
is, you know, the out of town, and not to be as smart out the out of town, you have availability generally in people's yards to position your truck. Like if you run the ladder out first out in town, you're always gonna know where to position your truck. And you're not gonna have to shut down operations to move, to set it up. It just makes sense. And you get a rescue done and a ventilation done quicker and you go. With that, to coincide with that, Councilor Palmer, I think that you'd have to put a larger pump on the ladder so we don't lose our needed fire flow off their equation. That's like longer than I am tall. But, I think you'd have to do some capabilities as far as putting a larger pump on to drive the larger pump. You may have to put a larger engine, blah, blah, but I think we'd still be in this ballpark of this truck here.
So you have ladder truck that you're looking at brand new, at least 2 engines in the future, which are $1 million a piece. The rescue rig, that's probably 100,000. If we're gonna go with a ladder truck and brand new, I think it does have to be going out pretty much every call, the first truck or the second truck. And I think there's gotta be serious consideration of downsizing the fleet. Because we can't afford $3 million in other trucks on top of a $500,000 ladder truck or a $2 million ladder truck.
If, we're gonna continue this conversation about fire trucks, I think I'd like to I mean, I know because you serve on the fire department, so you could rattle off, some of this. I would like to have more information so I could maybe participate a little better in this conversation. I'm unprepared for continuing this fire truck conversation any further.
Mr. Swanson asked that it be added to the agenda just as an update, so I think it's just a discussionary point.
It's great.
Decisions or anything, but
Because between now and it's the time to start plugging it in. It's just a continuation we had talked about before. And the market is changing every day. I feel we can make a decision fairly soon.
I think the chief is gonna reach out to other city, right, currently we have one.
Right. No, I've got other vendors that I'm waiting on stuff from, but they have to run it through they wouldn't send their proposed payments or their infinite details, if you will, until they run it through their financing as well.
I like the 5% interest option. That's interesting.
I actually know departments that have taken advantage of that 5% interest. And once they had got the truck delivered, actually got a check back. That they paid, paid the whole thing down with their projected, what the total was gonna be, and they ended up getting a check back from, which they approved for interest of, seeing the light. But that's rare. But interesting thing, especially when you look at the terms of the interest there, they're charging on a lease agreement for 15-year, I think it was less than that.
Where are E1s manufactured? I don't remember.
Excuse me?
Where are E1s manufactured?
Alcoa, Florida is where they make the aluminum trucks. They make it in upper state New York is where they make the stainless steel, but this would be an aluminum truck for weight.
Well, I've seen their repair trucks out of the States. So I know they have like regional, I think they have regional repair shops.
They have
My concern would be, it's nice to have Rosenbauer real close.
Ham Lake is their closest regional repair.
It's Ham Lake, okay, so
Honestly, about 10 minutes down the road, but
that's Rosie.
yeah.
Maybe that's a question that, looking at the finance goal or the financing options here. If this was, say it's a perfect world, then we can continue to put $250K away a year. Are there any, restrictions for paying this off early? Could we pay our lease to own off in 5 years instead of 20 years?
Yeah, and I asked Ryan if that was a possibility. He said absolutely.
Okay.
Because of the way it's set up as a rear payment, so I don't understand all that. He said there's absolutely no penalty for an early payout.
Yeah, I also, I think I've said it before, and say I get very uncomfortable spending $500,000 even on a 20-year-old vehicle when you're quarter or a third of the way to a new vehicle. So I think we're on the right path here. If we can get rid of a couple of old trucks and downsize and shift some things around and make things that work for our department work better for our department. I don't want everyone.
Coconuts.
Yeah, I don't ever want to put you guys up to, you're not able to do what you need to do, but if we can modernize, things, that's in my feelings.
Right.
This is 100 footer.
Say, yeah, it's HP 100.
It would be nice to get a breakdown, 5, 10, 15, 20 years on what the tax implications would be if we're gonna start looking at possibly putting this in the budget.
I don't think that would be a lot to be determined myself, but I don't know, wait, the council would want to pay it. And that's definitely going to make a large impact one way or the other.
We have no other availability for partial grants or anything that's out there that you found.
No, the assistance firefighter grants through FEMA took, after the last round that was available, the council decided not to put in for the letter grant. They have taken those off of high priority, with no intel on the horizon of if a ladder truck for a rural department is going to go back on, or sorry, urban/rural department is going to go back as a high priority. And with the cuts that are proposed to the AFG programs and stuff across the board, they pretty much told me to come.
I know it's a sensitive subject with the townships, but if they know that we're looking at downsizing the fleet, there's a possibility that we know that on the capital plan, replacement trucks, the other trucks is on there. Do we just let that go by the wayside, or do we downsize trucks and reallocate?
I think that would be a very good discussion point to have. And maybe we can invite more of the council and be at the next fire committee meeting to just have an open dialogue. You know, they may be more enticed to cooperate with it if you're looking at doing moving focus around downsizing the fleet, combining 20 with like making 20 more into a mini pumper than anything, you know, and moving stuff around. We have to do something that could try to help control us as well. All of our communities, and this is probably it sounds backwards, but I know I found a truck the other day that was 2005, so it's 20 years old, but that one was 550,000 lower.
I think we have to have a serious conversation with the townships. They've been money oriented for a long time. They're supportive if it makes sense, but having 4 pumpers and a ladder does not make sense. You need to have enough firefighters to crew.
Okay, let's so we can get this conversation and
Thank you, and let me know if there's anything more you want from me, but I have plans, like I said, I got.
In the short time, can we get working on the 5, 10, 15 year thing? We get this budget.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
all right, moving on to item number 7.4, mass notification software.
And this is just an update. These are the 4 softwares we have looked into. Catalyst, which is our current website, they have a mass notification software. They do have an option for an app, but most of the notifications would be done through text, call, smartphone pushes. So, and all of them, all 4 have like a map that you can select just a certain area, or people can sign up for certain things. Like if you wanted parks notifications, event notifications. Catalyst had unlimited notifications. GoGov is the one that has like the app, and it's that, but they do have a 25,000 credit per year for any voice and text messages.
And I believe, to clarify, that counts for incoming and outgoing, so that would add up very quickly, and then after that, there's an additional charge per.
And Civic Ready is Civic Plus. We use them for our Unicode. They have unlimited notifications. I would say them and Catalyst are the most similar. And then Text My Gov which they gave a 75,000 credit per year, but they only do text messages. They don't do any other notifications, no calls or anything, so they were. And I think they were one of the most expensive also. This is the uses we came up with that each department would use it for. We'd probably find more. But this is the start. And then prices are on the last page, and we'll probably have a recommendation at the next council meeting. We just want to give you this information prior so you're able to look it over.
The mayor and councilors wants to sat in on all of the presentations except.
I did not see the catalyst. I didn't see that.
Yeah, and if you're interested, maybe we could schedule a meeting so you could see that.
It would be more than one.
I think of the other three that we were at, there was one that was definitely at the top of my list. But I'll reserve judgment until I know you sent me that YouTube video or the link, video link for the cabinets presentation, so I'll have to.
And are any neighboring towns using mass software?
We do know of one that is using it, and I don't know how it's going.
What town is that?
That'd be great.
That's what I thought. All right.
How are we gonna measure success? Make sure that it's being used the way that we want it to be used.
I would say that to measure of success would be the number of subscribers you have, because I think with all of these, you must, other than TextMyGov, I think TextMyGov, you could import your users from like utility billing or something like that. All of the other ones, or the other two that I was part of the presentations for, you have to go and
Get them to
sign up the notifications, kind of like the county's Eventbrite, the Eventbridge that emergency notifications at the county.
I believe each of them has like their sources they use to pull people in, like their marketing strategies to get people to sign up. And they help with that. If we were to use a product like this, they help you get people signed in.
Do we have any threshold as to if we have 3,000 subscribers, that's awesome. And if we have 100 subscribers, it doesn't make sense to.
Right.
Which ones allows you to put, your utility billing and stuff in?
Remember which one that was?
That was
GoGov.
GoGov.
Was that your favorite?
That one. Unofficially, I'll say that one was my favorite of all of them.
Well, I would think, some of the purpose of it is to, tell people we're gonna flush hydrants or we're gonna, water main break.
Water main break, that's.
Gas leak or whatever. And let them choose if they wanna block it. If they wanna block it, let them block it. It's just, that way we've told everybody and we don't, otherwise you got the ones saying, well, I never knew it, I never seen that, it was advertised that I could get it.
If you want a good representation of the GoGov, there's many multiple municipalities in Minnesota that use it. So Broda, I think, does a very good job, and they have all their. If you search GoVism Broda in your app store, and they have what I would say is a very good idea of what we could achieve. With links to all of our utility billing and kind of the places, like the top 10 places that you would call city staff or call city or look for on the website.
Would it be, do any of them allow for input, like complaints, like there's,
Yes.
my neighbor's not mowing his lawn?
Yes, which could be very abused, which makes me concerned about the ones that limit how many you can have, because you're gonna have those repeat coming in. My dog wants, or my neighbor's dog wants to park. When are you gonna fill the pothole on 10th or even on 10th? Just
Not 10 this year.
no potholes on 10th, but
Better not be.
so that's what gets me concerned about a limit. Because you're gonna get the frequent flyers bringing in, which is good. We want people to communicate with us, but if we're, tally for each one and each one we send out, if we have 3,000, we're gonna be charged the 3,000 to mass send out. There's a water main break on so that would take up 3,000 of our annual usages.
Those were actually paying for the service to text, send those text messages out. There's no way around. You have to work with a Verizon or a T-Mobile or an AT&T.
It was like old school phone bill, you know, where you got paid per minute or.
I think as far as reach goes, we could come up with metrics to track. This does a really good job of, with all of these, in my opinion, did a good job of what comes in, what goes out, subscribers, percentages, those all things that you could track versus what we've done in the past right now, which is rely on the newspaper and hope that everybody reads Facebook. And they'd be able to monitor how much more information we're able to get out to more people more readily available. I just want to make sure that there is a matrix in place because we've had a lot of silver bullets over the years that never actually worked out the way they were intended. So it'd be nice to be able to do it at the end of the year to see how many people have subscribed. But the other part of complaints is it'd be nice to be able to consolidate it into categories and review it as a council if stuff is not getting taken care of. And find out why.
A couple had a very good dashboard that kind of built in their like a IT guys. So we have a help desk software that kind of is where all of our tickets go to and all of that stuff kind of gets managed and maintained from it. This GoGo and Civic Plus kind of give you that dashboard. A very nice way to say, this is a public works issue, this is a fire issue, this is a Parks and Rec issue, and it kind of pushes them to the right people and they can check. Mark off, I've given this to half, and it's been done, so it just kind of lets everybody know what's going on.
So let us know if you want to get presentation. It's open to anybody too. I just
Do we have the recordings from the,
think we have all of them.
all the recordings?
Yeah, if council would be interested in getting those.
Melanie.
I think I only got 1 or 2 of the recordings, but I can reach out and get the other ones.
But I do know all were recorded if we want to have access to it.
All right, any further follow-ups on Great, hearing none, I'll move on to item number 9, financial report, any comments or concerns? Hearing none, we move on to item number 12, something to make a motion to approve.
I have a council concern I'd like to bring up before we. I've been getting a ton of phone calls the last couple of weeks regarding stuff going around my lakeside. Got people driving fast, garbage, littering, trailer being parked out there overnight, parking on streets, which I was told was not gonna happen. I'd like us to add this to the agenda to follow up. If it's nothing, then it's nothing, but I've gotten so many phone calls and emails regarding this issue that I'd like to bring it back. I don't know if we need to have the deputies do some more patrols around that area, but I'd like to see some follow-up, because I don't want to get any more phone calls on this one.
Where were the parking trailers and stuff?
Apparently they're parking them on the road and in the parking lot. There's boat trailers, U-Haul trailers, flatbed trailers. There's overnight gas parking occurring on streets where we were told that was not gonna happen. The developer told us that we were not allowed it. So now that I'm hearing about it, it is concerning, because I didn't remember that repeated with the council meeting.
I would imagine some of it happened as the students were moving out for the summer and they were moving some boats in for the summer. I imagine some of it's that.
I would, I think the proper way would be to put your list of what these people complain about, send it to Marcy, ask Marcy to send it to Fred. He runs the place, he owns the place. I found him very receptive as fire marshal, and that he always was good to deal with, so I don't see why he wouldn't try to deal with it and
I know no one's reached out to the city, so it'd be helpful when you guys do get complaints like that to reach out, encourage them to reach out to us. Cause this is, we haven't heard any of this, so.
Well, what I usually do, and Marcia, just to tag on to what you said, is I send them a response if I get somebody that says that to me or has a complaint to me. I send it to her and CC her, make sure she, the response back to the person. That way it gets to city. And you responded to me, some saying that, Dave, we already had somebody talk to me about this or whatever. And that's a proper way. I mean, if we start, dealing with it on our own, it doesn't hurt to have our deputy and stuff look at this stuff, but I think Fredericton is.
I've encouraged people to reach out to the city before too, and some people just are not. No, they found
No.
reaching out by the city.
And they can reach out without their name too, so.
No, they can't. You have to provide at least an email address.
Oh, if they do the form? But I followed up on phone calls before, so.
What I'm hearing.
Yeah, except we're not getting them on our end, so if we could encourage that, it would be helpful.
On the website and see if I can remove that as a requirement. So people can do it anonymously.
Okay, it's a good idea.
Well, we're still here. Marcy, do you want to give us an update on the block comments?
Yes. So the locks were supposed to be changed yesterday, but the locksmith got stuck up in Hinckley, so he's there now. He's doing that now. The sheriff's office know who it is. There's an active investigation going on. That is about all I know. So it was just kind of fun to see that the cameras had been all covered or smeared with something. So when we went back to look at footage, there was obviously nothing to see, but the night of the meeting, Brock cleared up the cameras. And when the person came back after the meeting, all the cameras were clear, perfect video. We got that to the sheriff's office. They've been very receptive, and I've gotten comments of how they've seen a lot of patrolling in that area.
Who's been granted keys over the years to the storage room?
That would be a good question. We don't know because it was keyed. It's kind of like the library. We don't know how many keys were out there.
So with the new locks, who's gonna have access to the keys?
The city will have the keys. Youth hockey is probably gonna want keys and,
Does our agreement with youth hockey require us to give them keys?
I'll have to look at it, but I know they have a usage time, like right now is the city's time, where we would have access. Youth hockey gets access, I wanna say come August, September is when I don't want to say take ownership, but they have the use of it.
They have the right to use it, but I don't know if they have the right to have the keys to it. If we're gonna staff it, then we should maintain keys because apparently these keys got somewhere.
Because we did, I think I mentioned all of you, we did see in the video clear as day, he had a key, he let himself straight in. And he was very aware that the cameras were not covered, because the videos I sent you, he's just staring at it, like he's like, oh, crud, I better get my stuff out of here.
I live one house away from that and I walk my dog there multiple times a day. And I wish I could say that I noticed anything unusual, but I did not. And I look in the windows. Last night I looked in the windows, someone had mentioned, would you have thought it odd if the light was on? I don't think I would have thought it odd. I wouldn't know if they did it for security purposes or, it's unfortunate that.
But those main lights apparently were switched on the breaker box. So the motion activated lights were turned on.
He turned the breakers off.
Can we have like a key log this time around? To whoever gets a key makes it onto the logs. That's my biggest concern. Is if somebody lost their key at some point in time and didn't say anything and this person ended up with it. It's a huge security.
I assume that too, but I had also heard that he.
You're gonna lift it every time somebody.
City keypad and we change the code and then that gets updated every year and then that way no one's got keys. I don't know.
We looked at that type of access for the library. It is so expensive, but yeah, look what happened. So
They stink in the winter too.
RC, I sent you a note back after one of the things you sent out, and I said, what's our key policy? And I know you haven't had time because I just did this.
Yeah.
What is our key policy? I can remember back 20 years ago.
It's for a community room, like we keep track of that and we're the locksmiths for this now. So you sign it out and if you don't get it back, we call. And so we know everybody who has them. They are also the do not copy keys. I've never seen the warming house keys, so I don't know if they have that do not copy on there. But
Well, the problem with the warming house keys was we had a good bunch of ambitious volunteers, but they all work at a different level. I mean, I need a key, I need a key. You know, they're all so busy because they got busy lives. And I'm sure some of the stuff got sidetracked and people had it. I didn't like the idea that when I seen it up there in the utility room when we were there that night of the break-in, that these pieces of hockey sticks with keys on, we just, how can you manage that? I mean, when people can get at them in the utility. I can remember at City Hall, we were told to bring everything, all the keys back, they had them in a box. We had to sign them up. When I wanted a key as fire marshal to one of our buildings or whatever, I had to sign it out. I couldn't just take our key out of there, or the master for the master key boxes around town. I had to sign it out. We kept track of it. That's what has to happen here. If we have the keys that can be copied, but also Brock, and he's not here in all fairness, Brock, but he needs to set the policy if there is no policy as a city to, how are we gonna track these so we know that these things aren't, they're out. Somebody takes them out and doesn't bring them back. I mean, there's gotta be something.
And just because the key says do not duplicate on the back, doesn't.
They will do it.
They will.
I've learned that too. Yeah. But you pay extra for that little statement on your key, but yet they'll still do it.
But I think there's blanks that they have some notch on it that won't make copies, so I suppose that can be altered too, but
What's in that?
Hockey jerseys. I've only been in it once, but it was very organized. Was it organized when you went in on Monday?
well, he had moved some
Jerseys, equipment, kind of all in the line, very organized.
I mean, is there any utilities or anything else, access or anything?
There's another room behind that.
Yeah.
The storage room is the first room, Kyle, and then there's a utility room behind it where the electrical and that stuff is on that backside. And he was in there too, and that's where he had his microwave. That's where he had his little kitchen cooking thing going on.
In the can?
Well, that's just a microwave. He had his Bunsen burner and stuff where he cooked his meth. He had that in another room.
There's definitely no reason that anybody other than a.
Yeah, he was responsible.
Mechanical
Blood pressure.
Blood
Blood pressure.
As far as the storage room, I mean, this brings up the question, you're giving out keys to everybody. And stuff, his jerseys and hockey equipment, who's liable at that point?
I don't know. He also had a hand, one of the people found that, it was Leslie, found a handful of keys on top of this AED machine. And they were marked from the Civic Center. And there has been some problems with the Civic Center too, so it isn't just us that are having these.
Did anyone take those keys that night? Or did we leave them, do you know?
I don't know. Brock was taking care of it.
Okay.
I think he talked to Brock.
Okay.
Yeah, the Civic Center had some keys go missing in May, and that's what we found was there inside of them.
Until there's a trackable option for keys, I don't think that the new key should be going out to anybody other than city employees.
Because the policy we've implemented for this room we've had some hiccups with reservations, but otherwise the keys have gone very smoothly. They return them. We can put your utility bill. There's a little mailbox outside City Hall. Check it off. So it's pretty smooth, simple, old school process.
I think it works. I think it works the best.
It's just being able to verify it's not been copied. That's what's concerning.
But,
The locks like we have on the fire hall exterior doors, ones that work and ones. Those might be something similar to that might be, and they're still expensive, but if I remember right, they were about $800 a lot. But you can program them out, and for like during hockey events or during open skating and stuff, you can set that up with a pin to hold the lock open. And then set it up with another pin to relock the lock.
And at the fire hall, can you change that code whenever you'd like? Okay, that's what I'd like to, where you can be continually changing it to.
It's not through the computer, I have to manually go.
Right.
It's not through the computer with the ones that are on the doors, I have to manually go do it, but it only takes, it honestly takes me about 10 minutes to remember how to do it, and it takes me about 2 minutes to lock it.
But it has to be done every time. I like Ken's idea better, being able to just lock out numbers and lock out times. I mean, if they're in there after 9 PM, why are they in there after 9 PM? You had a buffer on the software that said you could only be in here during these set times, and if you're trying to access it outside of those times, you'd be locked out.
I think I'd be a little cautious on that, and anybody that's been involved with hockey, you might be done at 9 o'clock, but I think there's a lot of nights you aren't done at 9 o'clock.
You can set it for 10 o'clock, but you're always gonna have the same problem with getting borrowed out to somebody. Just run up there quick. The fact that you have other stuff stored there, I mean, what is the liability of that for? It's city liable if that equipment goes missing. Is it all insured by these items?
I'm not sure if they carry liability. It's a good question.
Yeah. Ask that we're out to the first of other options for. Right, do we have any other comments or anything? You're not so someone like to make a motion.
So move.
I'll set it up. Aye. Opposed?